I haven't seen this movie, so it's people trapped in one location, and they have amongst their number a gangster.
So it's like the Thing, or like a Shining situation. Honestly, the premise sounds really interesting because it's like in this a gangster in a mansion.
Cinematic fantastic.
Klaatu, Barada, Nikto.
I'll show you who I am and what I am.
Bitten by a werewolf and lives, becomes a werewolf himself.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to the Cinematic Fantastic Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Weatherford.
And your other host, William Weatherford.
Get ready for opinions, dad jokes,
and bad jokes
as we watch and review sci-fi and fantasy films from the classics of yesteryear to the new favorites of today.
If you wanted something to do in between seasons,
when you're missing us dearly and life feels uneven,
we'll stop on by and give you a lift. Brought you a present.
You brought you a gift.
This is a bonus episode, a little bit different from the ones you know.
4 theme movies in a row. Welcome to the bonus. Thankful that you joined us. Now here's the bonus episode. Konnichiwa, my friends. We're not in Japan, though. We're in Florida again. Today, we're doing a lovely movie called Key Largo. And this... Okay. I'm just gonna have to tell you something.
Okay.
I didn't like it. Okay.
Oh, I had that thought that you might not. Go ahead.
There are many things that it's just not really my cup of tea.
Okay.
So currently we are in the gangster era of our episodes. We've been doing a couple of these. This is the last in our Gangsters series for now. And
right.
It's a movie that came out quite a bit later than, like, you know, the 1930s classic era, as we know it. We've talked extensively about that in previous episodes, as well as the Scarface, which is probably a movie that most people know for the reboot.
Right.
Which, go check that one out. That was a pretty good episode. But this one, it's Key Largo. It's got Humphrey Bogart. It's got Edward G. Robinson. We saw him in Little Caesar as a gangster. It's got Lionel Belmore. It's got
Barrymore.
Barrymore. Sorry.
I think we called him Belmore the
There's
last time.
There's 2 Lionels, actually.
Okay, so we've seen some of these people before. So my question to you is, where have we seen Lionel Barrymore before?
I would say Frankenstein, but I'm not correct.
No.
Bride of Frankenstein?
No. It was during December we watched a movie. It's a Wonderful Life. He was Mr. Potter.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So
another thing.
Humphrey Bogart was in
Humphrey Bogart, Treasure of Sierra Madre. And we have John Huston on this movie from Treasure of the Sierra Madre, and he is definitely pretty good. Did you know?
Yes.
Did you know that he was the director of Annie? The Annie?
Yes, later.
The 80s one? I did not know that. And I was pleasantly surprised. Because I'm like, that's a good film.
Yeah, it's a hard knock life for us.
Oh, and he was also Gandalf in the Rankin-Bass Hobbit back in the 70s.
Yes, I wanted to mention that to you, but I think we mentioned that
Which I found was weird. When I saw he was Gandalf, I was like, wait, is he that old? But no, it's not the 90s,
he's
99
not
Gandalf.
that one, but he is pretty old. He was pretty old even at the time.
It's not the Gandalf you're thinking of.
Right.
The one from the memes.
He's the one from the meme with the weird thing where he puts the ring over his nose. Yeah. The less said about that, the better. So,
and we've also got Carl Freund on this. And we've seen him back in, like, Frankenstein. He was that German cinematographer. Dracula.
He did Dracula, yeah.
The cinematographer from the early days of horror. And
Mr. Unchained.
Yeah, we got Carl Freund on this thing. You're going to know that the camera shots are at least planned somewhat. And then we've got the dude from Sierra Madre. We've got Humphrey Bogart. Everyone knows him.
What about the music? We got Max Steiner with the music.
And Max Steiner with the music from King Kong.
Mr. King Kong.
And I believe Treasure of the Sierra Madre as well.
Yes, and Casablanca. A lot of... it's strange, but you see a lot of John Huston, Humphrey Bogart, and Max Steiner working together to, you get these collaborations.
There's like a point halfway through the movie after, like, they have a stand-up. I'll explain the premise in a moment.
Yeah.
They have a stand-up. That dude dies, and the storm starts up.
A standoff? A standoff, you mean?
Yeah, whatever.
No, it's okay.
They point hands. And
when you said stand-up, I was thinking, so they have like a comedian. They have like a comedian to do a comedian set. It's like, all right, Rocco, it's your turn to get up there and knock him dead.
I'm pretty sure I heard like saxophone, and I was like, since when have I heard saxophone in like a movie soundtrack on this podcast?
No, none. None. I mean, I heard a lot in The Man with the Golden Arm that I watched recently, but
yeah, not out of a bar.
I had a lot of saxophone in that, but not a lot.
Not even in a bar. Not even in a bar.
What about? I mean, this movie. This movie though, I'm wondering. This is one thing I was wondering about before we watched it. Is I went, well, this movie is a movie with a gangster in it. But I don't think it classifies a purely gangster movie.
Okay,
not a pure.
The premise is, as we discussed earlier, it's kind of like a The Shining sort of movie, like The Monster Walks, Old Dark House,
a storm keeping people inside. Yeah, definitely.
Basically, they're trapped in a storm-ridden house with a murder, like The Shining, except no one has superpowers.
Right, they don't have The Shining.
They don't have the shine.
But the thing is though,
and no one freezes at the end.
Yeah, you got a main bad guy played by Edward G. Robinson. He plays Rocco.
It's not like you need to watch the movie for anything other than like the specific scenes, and then like here's Johnny and the two girls, twins, and then you're done.
There's some questionable stuff in there, but mostly it's just a good creepy movie. But another thing to mention about this movie is that it was mostly all done in California. It was not done in Florida. There were some outside shots, but those were actually done on a set.
Shots primarily at the studio in order to keep costs down, and because of the exhaustion from them just having wrapped up the Sierra Madre.
Oh, that's right.
They just finished that film, and then they're right onto this one, and they're like, okay, we're going to get the same composer, same director, and it's just like, ugh.
They're probably very tired.
We're gonna do something different.
Hotel
exteriors were on the back lot.
Yes, and the hurricane shots, specifically where it showed,
stock footage from a Ronald Reagan melodrama.
Ronald Reagan movie. Yes,
that came out that year.
Yeah, so it's fresh. It's fresh in the mind.
Were
You're like, I remember
hurricanes in Ronald Reagan's life? Specifically, I wouldn't.
No, not unless you think of the.
I know there were hurricanes in 1948. There were like 2 of them in Florida.
Oh no, there's hurricanes all over the place. In different coastal waters, but
obviously.
Mostly inland you deal with tornadoes, and outside kind of on the coast you deal with hurricanes and water spouts and things like that.
But did Ronald Reagan specifically have a hurricane impact his life?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Not sure. I do know he was in a movie. He was in a movie that had some stormy hurricane type scenes in it, and that's what they pulled.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, premise of this movie, we've got a sort of cast there, sort of vacationing out in Florida, sort of reacting similarly to the Monster Walks movie we did earlier, as well as maybe a bit of The Ghoul. There's a dude who just died, and they're like reacting to it. In this case, it's like George. He died in the war.
Yeah, he's a hero.
He's a war hero.
And his old partner, played by Humphrey Bogart, is coming over to kind of meet the father of the man who basically died to save him, and also he meets the George's ex-wife, his widow, and they kind of hit it off.
And they're very woven in this beginning of the movie until some people come into the hotel, and turns out they're, gangsters, I guess.
They
One
were
of them
already
is,
there. The gangster guys were already there, and they had taken the whole place hostage.
There were just other dudes who stuck them up.
No, those guys worked for Rocco. Those were Rocco's flunkies.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Along with the guy who came in there later named Siggy, who met him there, just to kind of say, hey, what's up, you know.
But throughout this movie, they stay around because there's a storm and they can't do anything until the end of the movie where there's like a bunch of money being handed to him. Or like there's this contract dude who comes in and he's like, give me all your money.
Siggy is bringing money so that whenever Rocco can get on the boat to go to Cuba. He's wanting to go to Cuba, from Florida to Cuba, and once he, if he gets there,
the law.
Yeah, he's trying to escape deportation, extradition, whatever.
And he makes like the cast of this movie like drive them there, but then at the end they just save the day and drive back. That is basically this film.
Well, it's everybody. It's very tense, very tense. Everybody's like, he even there's even parts where he goes, yeah, here, hands him a gun and says, yeah, go ahead and shoot me. Go ahead. And it's just like, and the music is very sharp, and it's the rising tension.
That's the thing. Most of the tension in this movie is either melodrama or like mocking. They are literally just like, Rocco, you fell off. You're like because see, Rocco is sort of like the retired gangster type, which now that I think about it, isn't that sort of what Edward G. Robinson was like? Because he was a gangster back in the 30s, and now he's older now, and he's like retired.
He's retiring that character, the type, that archetype.
And so he's like, maybe. I can be good in decades later.
Yes, and he invariably is. I think he's fantastic in this. I mean, there's certain times he's like, I think he's fantastic because he's saying things like, these politicians, I make or break them. And they don't make a move without me. And the way he treats Gay Dawn, the singer,
the washed up singer.
Yeah, she used to be. Yeah, she's got a washed up. Oh, by the way, she won Best Supporting Actress Oscar.
Yeah, she did. She won Best Supporting Actress this year.
Yeah, and that song that she sings. She said early on. She said the song is interesting because the lyrics in it are about a woman.
Shoot, I'm the dude doing the production right now. I'll tell you.
So what happened with
the
song?
Song is sort of a bit about like from the perspective of an abusee, and like slowly throughout the song, it's almost as if she's like identifying with the song because as she sings and that creeps in, she's like, oh well, I'm trapped in here with a man who's forcing me to sing a cappella against my will. And
her voice cracks toward the end of it, and it's hard to listen to because you hear her emotion.
She did not know until that take that she was going to be doing that, and possibly that was because John Huston wanted to encourage doing it in one take, or maybe because he was demeaning to woman casts and members in general. And,
unfortunately, I think that I get that kind of vibe from some of his, and also people have said so. Yeah,
but I feel like it is a bit striking, I guess. But
I thought that this, I thought that whenever you have
this movie is full of melodrama. It's a lot of empty words.
That's fine. Look, I thought it was pretty good because they're talking about what is heroism, and you think you're a big hero, and he's like, no, I'm not really. But
they literally just like, oh, dude, you fell off, man. And he's like, don't you dare tell that to me. And that's, like, most of it, honestly.
Yeah, and it's a lot of chest
there's
bumping.
that dude, I don't remember his name, who just kept on, like, laughing. And,
Toots. His name was Toots or something.
He was the dude who, like, earlier in the movie, he was, like, reading the newspaper, and he was like, this funny thing in the newspaper. Con man cons someone for a fountain pen. And he says, it's guaranteed for life. Get it? Guaranteed for life. Because it's a con.
He's trying to say... He's trying to say...
What even is that?
Well, because when you're in jail, you're going to be in there for life. So it's guaranteed. Because you have a life sentence.
It's a fountain pen.
Yeah.
He gives him a fountain pen and says it's guaranteed for life. Is there a pun in that?
Yes, because it's a life sentence. Because you're in there for life.
But no, it's a fountain pen.
That's the joke, is that it's good for life.
Is it because the ink runs out?
No, it's because you'll definitely know that it's good for life because you're in there for life. It's good for life.
Yeah,
because you're in there for a life sentence.
Not to be.
No, that was
the fountain pen can run out.
That's not the joke. The joke is that you're in there for life.
Well, no, he said get it because it's a con. It's because it's a con of the fountain pen. You know, whatever. It's just stupid joke.
But he explained it. When he explained it, it was kind of, dumb. But he's the kind of guy that just laughs. And it's funny, there's other parts where he just laughs and he's like, what was funny?
Just
he's
laughs.
Like, for no reason. And,
we've got like them going like, oh, you're washed up, you're terrible. Who are you to be the almighty RoccoW? And Lord pray that he be smited by the hurricane. And then he's just like, don't you dare say that to me. And he's like laughing. And then it's like ultimately he doesn't.
It's nervous laughter. And you know what's interesting is the line I like is later on when the hurricane is really whistling, the wind is really going. Humphrey Bogart's like, yeah, just go take your gun out there and threaten it. See what happens. You can't see the hurricane. You can't threaten a hurricane. You can't do what you do as a gangster. You can't intimidate it. You can't stop it. You can't negotiate with it. You can't take it hostage.
Take like basically a majority of the movie on empty threatening each other. Also, you talked about the music earlier. It's funny how the music is more dramatic than the tension at the moment calls for, especially when there are scenes where he's just staring.
Yeah.
For no reason, and then they pump up the music, and I'm like, okay.
I liked the acting.
That was unwarranted.
See, okay, here's the thing: if you thought that this felt like a stage play, because it was adapted from a 1939 stage play.
But yeah, this was adapted from a 1939 screenplay, same name. Maxwell Anderson did it. In this movie, instead of gangsters, are Mexican banditos. And the Spanish Civil War is the war that took George in that one.
So it's more like the Treasure Sierra Madre in that with the Mexican banditos in that. It makes a little bit more
sense with the tone that they had for the first 15 minutes of the movie. It might have been a little bit like that. It might have fit, but at the same time, it's still ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because that's why? You got a soprano, not soprano, sombrero, poncho, bandito dude?
Yeah. Well, they've got two Native American Indians in there. They got two Native American Indians, so that's a little bit of representation, I guess you could say. What about the chemistry between Lauren Bacall, who plays Nora, and Humphrey Bogart's character?
I think it's just overall that Humphrey Bogart wasn't really there at all, man. He was smothered as compared to what he could be. Because before that, I remember earlier you were like, I saw the Roaring 20s. I was like, I want to watch that. And you were like, oh, it's a pretty good movie. You should watch it. I watched it. And he is definitely much more dynamic in that movie, and in the Treasure Sierra Madre to a lesser extent.
Yes, I have to agree on that. But in this, he's more muted, and kind of understated.
He doesn't really do or say much.
Yeah, it's only till the end that he really takes his future in his hands. He's
the main character of a visual novel, which for those who don't know, those are the games where it shows a character portrait in text, and that's the whole game. And basically the character is a black-haired boy who has barely any backstory. He's supposed to be your persona, so he's just not really special.
Insert character, right?
Insert character, and that's Humphrey Bogart in this movie.
No, I agree. I
feel like if there was chemistry, he wouldn't reciprocate it.
Well, let's put it this way. There is real chemistry there because they acted together. This is the last movie they did together, him and Lauren Bacall. They've done at least 4 movies, some with John Huston, some with Howard Hawks. Howard Hawks did Scarface.
Oh yeah, he directed that last movie, didn't he?
Yes, and here's the thing: Lauren Bacall actually met Humphrey Bogart before a movie with Howard Hawks. It was To Have and Have Not. Before they did that movie, Howard Hawks' wife, saw this beautiful young lady of 19 on a magazine cover and went, "Wow, she's striking." She has a very, the with the cheekbones and the eyebrows and just she has these really green eyes. And they said, well, let's get her in, see if she can act. And yeah. And then they started developing her. Of course, you know that Humphrey Bogart was 43, 44 at the time.
Oh yeah, wasn't he, like we said, he was born at 1900, straight?
Yeah.
1900?
A lot of guys, a lot of really great actors were born in 1900. No, but here's the thing. She was 20 when they started working together. So there's a 24, 25 year difference. I don't think Humphrey Bogart was happy in his marriage that he was currently. I mean, he was married a couple times before, but the current marriage he was in, he was not happy, and he really liked Lauren Bacall. Not only as a person, but he probably felt something for her. But after he got divorced, they started, kind of forming a relationship. And then they got married and stayed married until Humphrey Bogart's death in 1957, I believe. She said that he was, one of the best marriage she ever had. She got, she's wonderful grandchildren. I mean, they were married for 12 years.
So yeah, basically Humphrey Bogart was a good guy, but in this movie, I wouldn't think so as much.
Do you like him more when he's kind of a criminal, or he's got some dark sides to him? Do you think he like with
just when they do more with him as a main character?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he was also kind of biding his time. You could almost see his character was biding his time to take the right. Understated, understated, a little too understated for you.
The movie gets a bit better when they finally get forced to be a hero, when that contract arrives and then they get forced on to drive the boat. But that's at the last 20 minutes of the movie, and they just save the day. It's still extremely melodramatic, because even still, they're just oh, I have a revolver. I take down everyone in one hit now. That is the extent of oh, I got the gun now.
But I thought the cinematography was nice. I mean, a lot of those dark shadows. Again, is it a decent movie? Yes. Is it my favorite? No. But I do like to see some of the characters and the interplay. I think it's a film noir movie with a gangster in it.
But
that's about as close to gangster movie.
Words. They're sort of covering the same ground, which is funny because they're walking in the same ground.
Yeah.
But there's some things you can still definitely tell that Edward G. Robinson's character is definitely a threat to women and just generally unpredictable throughout the movie.
Yes. He's
but
a jerk.
Otherwise, it's just none of the other cast members really hit.
You don't think so? I think Lionel Barrymore he's just going through. He's doing okay, but he's more toward the end of his career. His health's not great. I mean, he's in a wheelchair for most of the movie anyway. But I'm just how much has he really got, going? I think he is the grandfather of Drew Barrymore, the actress. I think. Is that your claim to fame? That he's been in tons of movies. If you look at Lionel Barrymore's list, I think we did that at some point, but he had movies going all the way back to the silent era. Lots of stuff. But I think Lauren Bacall.
Yeah, when he died, everyone was sad because they had to bury more.
Oh, thank you. But Lauren Bacall, she lived till 1989. She lived till 1989. So she was, and her career went even into the 80s. She was still acting even into the late 80s.
I liked the first 15 minutes of this movie.
Yeah.
Because there really was a lot of that, you know, Florida atmosphere. Everyone was sort of, like, intertwined. Like, especially, like, the interiors were pretty good on that. You know, there were sort of some things. It got a little bit weirder when there was, like, the family came in and she was, like, the woman who was, like, she claims she's 140, but she has, like, a 120-year-old child, so we have doubt in that.
Hello, Mama Chobi. Every Indian around here is a descendant of Mama Chobi. She admits to being 108 years old, but she has a son who's 112, so we suspect Mama doesn't tell the truth about her age.
Most people don't live to 100. Most people don't live to 110 at all.
Yeah.
Like,
but honestly,
001.
William, that was just to kind of have Nora and Humphrey Bogart's character to kind of talk. It's to kind of see, you know, have to show a little bit of, you know, how they're relating to each other, and they did have chemistry. I'm telling you, they did. I felt it. But I think,
but yeah, when you know those people were sort of talking like a little friendly, like, you know, you lose the Florida atmosphere when the gangster comes in. And then it's just like they're all just.
I don't think the whole
characters.
point is Florida. I don't think the point is Florida. I know it's funny, but at the very beginning, just to kind of tell you a little bit about the movie, it actually has a crawl, an opening crawl that tells you about what Key Largo is, what Key West is, and you're like, do people not know? Do people not go to vacations down in Florida?
What is this, Carmen San Diego? Is this important information?
Right,
you get the
right.
clues?
Yeah, this was directly. This is a direct. You know, this opening crawl was a quote from Encyclopedia Britannica. I mean, honestly, a lot of times they put. Okay, the Star Wars open crawl is a necessary thing. Most of the time, you don't need opening crawls.
Is it? I won't go into that, but
I do think it's necessary to the Star Wars open crawl
let's
is
not
necessary.
go into it.
Not for this movie, but for Star Wars, I believe it was.
Tease. Just I don't know. There might be some thoughts on it, like depending. Oh, by the way, there was like the only other thing was that they were talking about what if the Prohibition comes back?
Yeah,
because they're like
they want the good old days back because I guess the gangsters of old aren't around anymore.
It makes me laugh every time I think about that. I turn into Nickelback every time because they're just like, what if the Prohibition comes back? Just the pro is like what? Just to say that like the new age of the gangsters.
Yeah, they're like, wouldn't it be great if Prohibition came back?
Prohibition's coming back, and it's like it's not even the Prohibition is not related to gangsterhood as much as what came after. But
no, Prohibition birthed the gangster because they were able to.
But it's just funny talking about it because they're like, we're gonna bring back the Prohibition, and it's
they want those good old days back. They can't bring back Prohibition, but they're saying, wouldn't it be great if they brought it back?
They're gonna be like, you know, we're gonna you stop drinking in the bars just so that we can turn into gangsters and sell
80-year-old gangsters, you know, kind of going around going. You know, doing bootlegging, I don't think it would work. But I think that what that means is that the shine or the kind of was wearing thin on what it meant to be a gangster. Was
that a pun on the fact that I said that this movie was similar to The Shining?
No. I meant
I just wanted to realize that as I was thinking.
meant the shine as far as like how cool it is to be a gangster. Those days have long passed. And now it's just kind of like, you know, he's longing for those old days, those old school days when you could really be a gangster.
And so was the director. He going back into a bit of production. He based various things from the movie on his own experiences, such as, you know, various talks about like the war and some of the things like that one song was from his experiences in the war with a particular woman.
Yeah.
I think. I don't, I researched this like an hour ago, and so I'm trying to recollect it in my brain.
Right.
So, there is something funny that happened from the legacy of this film, is that this film is called Key Largo, which Key Largo is an actual place in Florida.
Yes.
Key Largo holds a Humphrey Bogart Film Festival every year. Because he was in a movie about Key Largo, or that took place in Key Largo, called Key Largo.
Yes.
And so they do a festival every year. And
that's fantastic.
I was like, I wonder what it would be like to go there.
Oh, and go to the festival, yeah.
Yeah, sure it would be like, a day's driving for like, I don't even know when is it. I'll look it up.
There are film festivals that come through the Nashville area. Definitely. I mean, that's all the time. They've got shorter films, they've got longer films, all kind of stuff. But the fact that
but it's in it's in Key Largo.
They do it every year?
Yeah, this said every year. I'm looking for a time frame. Let's see, here is October 18th to the 22nd. I don't know if it is still ongoing, but if it happens to be.
Key Largo or Key West is if you think of think of Florida as the necktie of the United States. It's the tip of the necktie. It's as far...
Yeah, might as well go to Disney World before we go to Humphrey Bogart Film Festival.
It's way far down there. And honestly, we could have our own Humphrey Bogart, Honestly, I think
that might be fun. Do that October 18th through 27th as like a special event this year, or maybe the next.
I don't know.
Might just have to.
I don't know how we'd pull that off, but hey, I'm down for anything. But I have to see how to pull it off.
Oh, also another thing about there's a line earlier in the movie where there's like a family member who always went out looking for Blackbeard's treasure, and he would constantly hit water from digging holes.
Right.
And a thing was when John Huston was scouting for locations on the Florida Keys, apparently he asked the hotel owner where the storm cellar was, and he said if you dug 3 feet down, you would hit the ocean. So there isn't one.
No.
So I would say that's a little bit of inspiration as well from real life events. He's like, I'm gonna work that in the movie.
There's no getting away. There's no getting away from these hurricanes. They're just too damaging. The real damage the hurricane does is very quick. I mean, there's a whole big tree limb that gets thrown through a window. I mean, it's got other. I think it's the threat of it, and what it could do and what it could cause, and the threat that it brings to Rocco and his guys, especially Rocco. That's really where the danger comes from. That I don't think the danger is specifically from the hurricane. The danger is from men who
what the gangster might do but never does.
Well, do you want him to? Do you want him to kill everybody in the room just because he threatened to? I want to see Edward G. Robinson act.
He really could, especially as they were like inciting him throughout the movie for like no reason.
But here's the thing: I don't think that he shoots some guys, but he doesn't have it in him to just kill everyone. Because remember, there's a part where they said, okay, so if you kill this guy, then you're gonna have to kill everybody else as witnesses. You can't leave any witnesses. I think Bogart says that. He goes, then you got to do this. You got to kill everybody, and then what are you gonna do? It's almost like, yeah, sure, you could kill us all, but you're gonna have to deal with the consequences of doing that. So. Again, you can't say that he threatens to kill, and then you're like, I want him to kill. I want the promise to be done, because he's really a coward. I mean, he may promise to do all that, and you think he could, but he doesn't because of his faults, because of his failings.
But does that mean he's a strong gangster character?
I think he's a strong character in terms of. He's got something he wants, and he pursues it. He's got faults. He affects other characters in terms of the things that he wants to do, or the way he treats them, or the way he interacts with them.
So you're saying he's sort of like the type he wants to revel in respect and glory,
but he's really
too, I'm too hoity-toity distinguished of a man to. Off everyone in the room, and just
he would like to just to kind of show that he's boss.
Like, he didn't have to like keep them around, really. I mean, he could have like driven the boat himself.
Well,
or got someone.
I don't think Rocco can drive a boat.
Okay, well,
he's not
yeah.
good with the ocean and boats and stuff like that. I mean, he has to hire the guy to take him out there. He only later, when the guy leaves with the boats, he's got to use Humphrey Bogart and goes, well, his first love is the sea. You know, his first lady was the sea, so you got to use him. So I think it was a second thought. It was like a, you know, like,
and
okay,
the only
fine.
letter of the alphabet that isn't in his name is C. Well, I'm sure it's not the only one. There's definitely not an X in there.
Unless it's Frank MacLeod, and there's
well,
two,
maybe it's because there's not
C's.
an X in there, as in an X relationship. I don't know.
There's 2 C's in MacLeod, so he's got 2 C's in his name. But he's double interested.
But
in that.
overall, I don't really get it though. He's just a little. I'm not convinced if you were to tell him that he's like this fleshed out gangster character, because he's like.
Well, when you say strong, I'm talking about in terms of impact to the story.
Yeah, by the way, if you guys are wondering why we're not doing like any sort of semblance of a plot, it's because this movie is rather simple, really. That it's just sort of like they make threats at each other. It's a character movie. It's the whole thing is built off the script.
It's an acting. It's based off a play, so it's definitely going to be people acting off each other. And
it's people are talking amongst each other and threatening each other like throughout a lot of the movie. And then, like, some dude, he gets killed, and then the law comes in, investigating that, but they somehow manage to worm themselves out of that.
Well, we know who RoccoW is. We know what he is. But everybody else is like, oh, that's Mr. Brown or whatever. And you're like, when are they going to find out?
That's the one thing where if they could have leaned into the law having an aspect in there more.
Yeah.
Because that's, like, one thing that I actually was like, oh, well, this is, like, one actual threat to Edward G. Robinson's character. I'm saying Edward G. Robinson's character because I don't even remember his name. What even was it? It was, like...
RoccoW.
Shaw? Well, I know it was RoccoW, but what was the first name?
Let's see.
Hugo RoccoW?
No. Let's see. But keep going.
Just name names? William?
Johnny RoccoW.
Well, that's not a really memorable name, because it's like, you know, Johnny.
Well, think about this. It's probably Giovanni RoccoW, but they always do Johnny, or Gianni RoccoW. But, okay, so here's the other part of that is, didn't he play a guy named Rico? So he's like Rico and RoccoW, you know, it's like...
It's like Marco Polo.
Yeah, Marco Polo. You could, or Mario. You could remember that. All right, so what
did you get out of this movie? Because I digged for Blackbeard's Treasure and got nothing.
I thought it was tense. I like watching actors act off each other. I like it when somebody will, you know, say something that gets that something simple that lays them bare who they are. That cuts them to the core and gets them upset. I like that kind of like, oh, okay. You know, I like watching that interplay.
But you won't deny it's quite simple, really.
It was not my favorite.
It's a lot of melodrama in this movie, in my opinion.
A lot of movies we're going to watch are going to have a lot of melodrama.
Like, they're talking, but it doesn't really mean anything. It's just, like, to be, like, dramatic.
It does mean something.
I mean, like, ultimately.
It does it in the end, but nobody ever knows that when you're in the movie and you're playing the part and you know, you're a character, you know, in this story, you know, you may say something that you think means something, but later it's laid bare that it's meaningless. That's the whole point. I
feel like 2 things overall I'm going in, remember with what you said earlier about the premise in the last one, the Scarface, and I was like, oh, cool, this is like a unique idea for like a gangster sort of take, I guess, where it's like, imagine Scarface in like a hotel. Like, you know, there's like a murder on the loose, you know, like The Shining. He's actually dangerous.
But then there is somebody that got killed, but
he's all bark and no bite. He's all bark and no bite.
Granted.
And just overall, this genre is very volatile. It's quite volatile. Because you can get like an old dark house, and it's, you know, it's got some mystery elements in there, and it's alright. Well, I'll discount the monster walks from this argument, because that was just like everything they thought of was terrible.
Right.
They didn't have any competency at all in trying to make a film, and instead just making like I don't remember, it called Poverty Row movie.
Oh, they thought they were making a good movie at the time, I'm sure.
It's very volatile because you could easily get up with a ghoul movie. Remember we talked about in one of our minisodes where we did like 3 movies in one episode, you know, sort of thing. One of those was The Ghoul, and it basically has this sort of premise, sort of like The Monster Walks, where they're trying to collect a dude's inheritance, and then spooky horror stuff happens.
Yes.
And instead of a monkey, which was that movie's whole shtick, the Ghoul had, the Ghoul. It was sort of like this mummy thing, I guess. That movie really dropped the ball. Because it had like a big cast, but none of them mattered. They were really just like, you know, speaking at each other, but like nothing really meant anything. And it was just like, you know, I feel like this movie is in that ballpark to me.
I think this movie was superior to The Ghoul. In terms of just watching actors do
I can
work
see that,
their
you know,
craft.
they have a good director. They have a nice cast. Good names.
Yeah.
They have some good names. Couple of them. They just really attempted and dropped the ball, in my opinion. To what
Okay,
this
that's your
could be.
that's your opinion. I can see where you're coming from with that. I think honestly, maybe this movie. I thought of the 4. Okay, of the 4, which one is your favorite?
Scarface.
I figured so.
And then The Public Enemy, and then Little Caesar.
Yes,
It's quite close.
Yes, I think what really puts Public Enemy over for me is Cagney's acting and him portraying the character.
Yeah, it was like The Public Enemy, you know, it had a lot of things going for it, but it was like, you know, there was potential there, and then Little Caesar rounded out the other half of the potential, so they were sort of on the same boat, and then Scarface came in and had all of it.
I agree.
Like, in the Venn diagram, it was a big border of a lot of the things that they did. Some of the things, you know, that they didn't have, but still.
Yeah.
It was a pretty good movie.
Yeah, Scarface was the best of them all. I think this one probably does this one probably below Little Caesar for you? Yeah,
I'd say nah.
I get it. And I thought it might not have been your favorite. Had I was trying to get a variety of things, but my other thought was maybe later on I decided I had already decided on Key Largo, but my other thought was maybe White Heat. You know, if you want to see,
that's the only other good gangster movie that we haven't really covered, other than something like Goodfellas and The Godfather.
If you want an aging gangster, a gangster that's getting older, then definitely James Cagney in that, and he is losing it. I mean, he's like, I made it, Mom, top of the world. And he's losing it. He's hallucinating. He's going crazy.
We've been talking for a little bit, but for sake of extending conversation a little, you want to talk about the Roaring Twenties for a little bit?
Okay,
which was another movie that I watched.
I want to hear what you think and what kind of ideas you have.
So this movie basically, now this is a unique gangster movie, which again, they never really did gangster movies again after the 30s, really. They were just like homaging sort of to it, I guess.
Let's put it this way. Well, the gangster movies started coming back into vogue probably in the late 60s.
Yeah, 60s you get Godfather, 70s. Goodfellas, and the like.
And the 80s, and I think in the 90s they started really, especially Martin Scorsese and Francis Ford Coppola. Yeah, those guys really. But go ahead.
I guess to summarize, the main premise is that they start out in the wartime. We have these troupe of characters, who they come back from the war, but no one likes them anymore because they were soldiers, and so now they get into the racketeering business.
Yeah,
and then they have,
because and that's the thing. That's very similar to what happened to a lot of different, people that got into the gangster lifestyle. Is they sent you overseas, you learned how to kill people, you did it for, quote, a good cause, and then you come back and you're like, no one really appreciates you.
You can't get jobs.
Well, he wanted to get his old job back, and they were like, we gave it to some other guy, but you said you'd keep it open for me. Nobody can really keep a job open for like 4 years while a war is going on, 1914 to 1918. That's a hard promise to even promise anybody to do. But he just expected
even longer,
he would just
depending upon the travel time of Europe, because they didn't have they had airplanes in World War I, obviously. Or did they? They didn't.
Oh, they had airplanes. They had airplanes. They weren't as
they went by boat.
Well built as they were in World War II.
So they had to likely go around Africa and everything, go up Brazil, stuff like that.
No, they didn't have to.
To Argentina. That's what I'm thinking of.
It took a little while to get back home. Not as long as you think. Yeah. But yeah,
and at the beginning of this movie, there's we've got this group of soldiers who it's not really like a super serious, we're in war and everything. They're like smiling amongst it. It doesn't from the start. It just seems to be some sort of amused angle that it takes from the start, particularly because they do narrator moments.
Look, there's violence.
They crack some jokes.
Yeah, there's violence happening all around you. Okay, and you could give in to the depression of it all, or you could just kind of go, "Hey, pal, we're just."
Even still, they're sort of casual gangsters, right? They just slide into it. Really,
it's dark humor where you kind of joke around about death. Is where the
it's okay, they're just in the racketeering business. We don't talk about how evil it is. They do focus more on romance and stuff. They still live a life in this movie, and it's you forget it's a gangster movie. I even forgot it was a gangster movie going into it. This quickly makes an extreme contrast when they do pull that out in the last third of the movie.
I just like good movies. I don't sit there and go, oh, well, that doesn't feel like a gangster movie.
It's well done. If you want a well done movie, you're fine watching it.
I look at it not as a genre piece, but as a character study, a character piece. The only thing that's
because it has Humphrey Bogart and James Cagney in it.
The only distracting thing to me is where it would go into that almost news on the march kind of voice, and it would kind of go, during the 1920s, da 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 da, and you're like, thanks, History Channel.
I thought it was fun.
Yeah, okay.
It's sort of this, amused angle of things. They're going about life. Basically, but yeah, they make an extreme contrast when they pull out the gangster elements in the last third, when they're just gangsters, overwhelming the place, and then they show all the violent things that they did, and then they're here they get a guard, and then there's a scene later in the third half where there's an entire bar, and then there's a rival there, and so they
yeah, is it
in that moment, and they're just It's just they were so jovial earlier. And it's oh right, this is a gangster movie.
Now what is the whole thing where there's the female singer that he gets her, singing? Because he's hey, she's good. Right?
Yeah, and because he has the money to do it, yeah.
He gets her in there, and then once she's in there, she forgets all about him and goes with that other dude. Is that right?
I think so. There was a little bit of a back and forth with
yeah, and that's just how it goes. You do everything you can for somebody, and then they just, they forget who got them there.
The one thing though is that it sort of feels like two movies in that respect, and it really needs to sort of blend that amused tone with what they have in the last half of the movie, so that it can have a stronger identity.
Yeah,
because I would have liked it to have had sort of an amused gangster story would have been great. Like Dr. Strangelove. That was a movie where they were How I Learned to Love the Bomb. They were having conflicts in there, but it was a humorous movie. I guess you could say. From not having watched
there
it.
There is a movie.
They have a pie war at the end. How funny. Ha ha.
Well, there is a movie that came out in the 80s that had Michael Keaton, Mr. Batman himself. It was called, I think it was called somebody, Men Wear Plaid or something like that. Dangerous Men That Wear Plaid or something like that. I had to look it up, but let's see. Okay. It's called Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid. And it was a Steve Martin movie. And what he did is he would intersperse film noir movie clips with himself and other actors. And they made it work. I've seen it, and it's very interesting. It almost makes it look like this could actually work as a movie back in the 30s style. But the way that he frames the conversations and the clips that already existed, it does bring a little bit of a humor to it. I think it was Johnny Dangerously. Yeah, it's a parody of 1930s gangster movies. Yeah.
But yeah, there's like one part of the Roaring Twenties where I believe she is being like shown around their like factory facility, I guess, which she was like, oh, this is like mighty dandy, and like he's sort of like saying some things about like the true business, but she's like sort of oblivious to it. I feel like that might be a bit funny if we like went like he became a gangster and it was like sort of obvious, but she was like oblivious a bit to it.
Yeah.
That might be a bit funny. Yeah, there is a lot of like moments where it's like, you forget it's a gangster movie. With like a lot of the romance, they have scenes together. There's like songs. They're doing like all other things other than, No,
a lot of those movies though, a lot of people that wrote music paid to have their songs kind of put in to those films. Sometimes they would structure a movie around putting those songs in there.
Yeah, just thinking like a lot of those movies where it's just like, they get paid to like put the music in there, like sing, various jukebox musicals.
That.
There was that one Transformers movie where the whole thing was like sponsored by like 10 different products.
Yeah.
And so they had like a Budweiser truck get struck by like one of the Decepticons. And so like one of the dude falls in it and he's like, yo, this is like Budweiser or something.
No, what he does is he gets up and walks over to
Bud Light.
He grabs a Bud Light bottle and opens the Bud Light bottle on one of the broken windows of a car that got smashed and goes, "What's up?" And then drinks a little bit as he's walking off. He's like, "What are you looking at?"
And there's like a whole thing where they have like a speaker as like a part of like the exposition scene or something. It's just like, well,
right.
Okay, they have like some Sony speaker or something. Something in China. I don't remember.
The custard pie fight at the end of Doctor Strangelove was actually filmed but cut for the final print, so it's not in the final movie. It's a deleted scene.
I watch various videos on stuff that they cut from movies, of like that, as well as like the King Kong spider pit sequence.
Yes, that's an infamous one right there.
Stuff like that. Like to watch, and so that's one of the things I remember of Strangelove is they have a pie fight at the end.
That one's cut out. So I know these movies were a little bit different, than our normal science fiction.
Yeah, Roaring Twenties and Key Largo were both like quote gangster movies. They're movies with gangster or gangsters in it.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't like gangster as a genre. I think what helps me like these movies better is I look at them as character studies. They're action movies with a character study in them. They're tragedies. They're tragic not only for the people connected to the gangster, but the gangster themselves as they it's almost like a Greek tragedy with how they kind of go up and in the heights and go down.
Wow. Okay. I didn't expect to be talking about Greek tragedies. Okay, I guess Dad likens Key Largo to Homer.
No. No, I would say Scarface, stuff like that. Because there's the element of hubris. Hubris is basically,
you could do a gangster movie back in the days of when they did the masks on the round theaters, just the round circle and like the steps and everything made out of stone.
Yeah. Well, see, those old plays, those tragedies were about somebody, cursing the gods and saying, I'm going to do this on my own, or I'm going to, so what else is somebody doing when they're daring the police to mess with them? I mean, the only thing that they have to fear, they don't fear God or man, I would say if you want a modern Greek tragedy of a criminal empire, probably the most popular one would be Breaking Bad.
Well, from not having seen it, I guess you could say so, although I feel like, then again, of course I haven't seen, barely any of it, and honestly, it sounds like there might be, I don't know what they would do to, spin on what they have, because it's they've got, one thing going with they're running their cartel business, and then it's what hijinks do they get in with that? If they get into hijinks.
Well, it's about getting power. It's about the threat to power in terms of you could just you could stop and cut your losses, right? You could cash out. It's like gambling. You could cash out and just live a good life. But no, it's not enough to be smarter than the next guy. It's not enough to be a genius anymore. It's to be feared. It's to have somebody think about your name and think about you and quake in their boots. There's, you never know that appeals to you until that day that you take on that persona.
And especially when you stop to think about it and you go, okay, they're called gangsters, right? So not only is it that that person has that specific idea or ideal, American dream, as we've been talking about in our Public Enemy episode. Not only that, but you're not alone in thinking it. You're not alone in thinking it, and you can find people who have your same ideology and join up with them and have power in numbers.
Well, in a show like Breaking Bad, it's partners in crime or it's criminal organizations. But as far as real gangsters, I mean, they're people that are parts of criminal organizations. Could you call them gangsters? I mean, maybe, but I don't know. That's a little bit of that's more of an old school kind of way of talking. You don't really think of gangsters.
Going back to the specific definition of gangster, is that they're in a gang. They're in a fellowship, if you will.
Well,
they're good fellas.
Yeah, or good fellowship. Yeah. So, anything else you want to talk about these movies?
Well, yeah, Roaring Twenties. It's well done. The effects were surprisingly good, especially in those news on the march segments, as you call them. They were a lot of they were surprising a lot of times, where it's just they're doing. There was a thing where they were pushing this tower of something that was falling.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Later on, it's just or the part where they're showing the gangsters rule over the world. They're showing all these things and dynamic character angles. It's just all quite creative. The ending was good. I will say it's a little bit sort of like the Public Enemy, where he's dying at the steps of a church.
Yes.
I remember us talking about one of the movies where it was he couldn't go into the church and then he dies on the steps of the church.
That's Little Caesar.
Little Caesar, he died behind a poster board.
No, I mean no, it was that young Italian guy who he had the Italian mom or mama, and he said wasn't there
the Wolf Man where he couldn't enter the church. And I think that's what I'm thinking of.
I was thinking, well, the guy who died on the steps of the church would be that young guy who was going back to see the priest, and then Rico and his buddy just gunned him down on the front steps.
Yeah, and that's what I think of. It's sort of a bit derivative of that. There's like the girlfriend, like holding him in, dying in her arms, and like a cop comes up. He's like, "So who's this fellow? Who was he?" And she's like, "He was a big shot."
Well, she says
that's like the final line of the movie.
She says, "Beast killed this beauty."
No, Beast hath not killed that beauty. But yeah, the ending was pretty good. It had like a bit of that snowball effect, like especially when they were just like the main character, like when Humphrey Bogart and James Cagney confronted each other.
Yes.
And we're like, yo, we're doing this, That was immensely powerful. It like snowballed in toward that happening and just kept getting better and better as it went.
I saw them in another movie talked about before, Angels with Dirty Faces, and they actually are in that together in kind of a head-to-head confrontation. So that one's good too, in terms of that. I do think that it shows Humphrey Bogart as a criminal, but he's a little bit more skeezy, like scheming and a little bit afraid. And James Cagney is more of the more dangerous one. Well, he's trying to leave that dangerous lifestyle behind, and he's trying to make better choices. I just feel
like, again, that if the movie had like kept that, amused like tone, that amusing angle toward like the events of the movie, like I probably would have liked it like more.
I think a little bit of that dark humor,
because at the beginning they're just like, oh, we're in the war, but we're here to like, we can chat in like tea time while we're on the break of the war, and it's just like, oh, well, the war's over, cool, well, let's go on, war's over.
The war has just begun for them, because they've got a whole nother battle.
They got a war at home,
right?
And this movie, it wasn't my cup of tea. They fumbled the ball. They had a potentially pretty good premise, but then again, it is a pretty volatile premise. You can do good with it. You can do bad with it. You can do both with it.
Well, you end up.
I haven't watched The Shining. The Shining could easily, not have been great at certain segments.
Sometimes when you make the gangster movie, you sort of kind of ape what came before.
Yeah, you're going like, remember that? Remember that in your childhood? You're 30 now.
Well, think about it. A lot of these gangster movies have the rise to power. They have somebody threatening them. They have where they could just hang back and not be threatened, and have to take revenge or take an insult. They can let that go. No, but they can't let stuff go. And they have to, they have to threaten their livelihood, and it's just like, until it's all about power for them, until it's all about, respect. And all those different things, those are all interwoven in. And if you don't watch it, those things can be a repetition too much. And
it caused the downfall for his earlier character, Little Caesar, when in the newspapers they were like, oh, dude, this dude fell off already, man. And he was like, no, don't you dare. And then that's how he got, like, found out. Yes.
So we have watched 4.
So it's just, it's not my cup of tea. It's lukewarm. It's, you can taste the tea bag in there.
Right. Okay. So as I was saying, we've watched 4 movies that at least had one gangster in each one. So you can at least say that. And this has been our second bonus episode group. The first one we did was Cinematic Classics. This one's been Golden Gangsters. I don't know if we're going to have anything planned for Christmas this time. We might. There's always something we could do. I've got a couple ideas of things we didn't do last Christmas, but let's wait till that's way later in the year. It's not time to plan that at all. Right now,
we'll be starting the season back with Son of Dracula. We're going to be seeing the adventures of Alucard and the continuation of Dracula's legacy. Blah, 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 ha, ha, ha. I was going to merge those into something hilarious, but I couldn't do that in my head.
Who plays the Son of Dracula in this?
Lon Chaney Jr.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think I don't know if we have the return of Edward Van Sloan or not.
No, we don't.
We don't. I think we've got a different vampire killer.
Yeah, he was old, honestly.
Yeah,
I bet
we'll let you know how that turns out. So, we are going to do some other interesting things as we go. They are going to be related to our theme of film and things based on films. But
we'll just have to. We'll try and announce that and check it out and see, because who knows? I mean, we have a pretty loose schedule as of current. Just really hoping that we can like be able to schedule something for once and be like, hey, this is coming out this week at this time. We get it through.
Yeah. So
we are quite busy people.
Yes.
In our normal daily life, but we like to as one particular song, I don't know the band who made it particular, but it's Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Let's just say nerds just want to have fun.
Yes.
And speaking of which, I want to play some Carcassonne. So if you don't mind, let's wrap up this podcast episode. Play some Carcassonne. Heard it's good. I want to play some of that.
All right. Bye
so,
for now.
How does Jimmy Fallon end The Tonight Show?
I don't know. I don't watch The Tonight Show. And I used to watch it when Jay Leno did it, but I do not watch it when Jimmy Fallon does it.
Wasn't there like a whole thing with him getting on there and they couldn't really make it The Tonight Show because there was like whole controversies with how he ran it?
I don't know.
And so they were splitting with the classic guy they had and the new guy they had, and it just couldn't work out until Jimmy Fallon came in.
There's Late Night with Conan O'Brien, there's The Tonight Show, and there's Late Night with David Letterman. That's the only ones that I really cared about. So, but
yeah, let's sign off like however Jimmy Fallon does it.
We don't have to do it like Jimmy Fallon does it. We can just go, see you later.
See you later. Thanks for listening to Cinematic Fantastic Podcast. Click here and here for some more excellent content. Hope you'll enjoy it. See you soon.